My name is Casey Price. I am the Executive Director of Frameline. And tonight I am here with the Director, Kyle Patrick Alvarez of C.O.G. and the star of C.O.G., Jonathan Groff. Welcome,
Hello.
gentlemen.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you for being here and for bringing your film to Frameline37. So I wanted to start off and ask you both a question about the film, whether either of you, of course it's based on a David Sedaris story, and do either of you have yourselves a personal connection with C.O.G. in terms of the story? How did these characters connect for you?
I mean, for me, I grew up in Sacramento, near here actually, so I feel like screening here is a little bit of a homecoming for me. But I grew up in Sacramento in a pretty religiously conservative neighborhood, but I didn't grow up in a religious family. So I always felt a little bit at odds with my community. And at the same time, that paralleled my own sexuality insecurities, I should say. And so that was definitely where I read this story the first time when I was in school at that time. I think that's why it stuck with me for so long, because it approached something I was conflicted with, because I was surrounded by so many people that wanted me to understand and be a part of their religion, even in a sincere way.
Right.
And it approached it in a way that was so funny and but still challenging. I think that was the main reason why it stuck with me for so long.
Great. Jonathan, how about you?
I think I connect to the character in the David/Samuel in the movie. When we meet him, he kind of thinks he knows everything.
Right.
And sort of through the course of I remember when I started working on it with you, we talked about how usually you hear the stories of like small town kid goes to the big city and sort of gets his ass kicked and leaves. And this is like big town mindset, going to a small town and getting his ass kicked and leaving. And I think that I connected to the characters sort of like early 20s idea that he knows everything. I definitely was in that place when I first moved to New York and felt like, I got this, I know what I'm doing. And then you very quickly realize that you don't.
Right. And I'm sure you get asked this question so much, but I just have to ask, in terms of having the honor of doing the first film about a David Sedaris film, how did that happen? How were you fortunate enough to make that happen?
I mean, long story short, it was a long process. I think the key points to why it worked out this way, and why he finally said yes after so many years of people saying no, was that I approached him with this sense of I was interested in making a film that would have my own identity, that would be of mine and the people who were going to be in it and the people who I was going to be working with on making it and the producers I was going to be working with, that would be sort of our film, and that it happened to have been written by David Sedaris, but wasn't actually going to be a David Sedaris movie.
Right.
And casting Jonathan, I think, was sort of a big testament in that aim, which is that Jonathan doesn't look like David or even sound like David, but there's a certain, I hope the spirit of David is in there, but not the actuality of I don't think the film I don't think it serves that wish fulfillment of wanting to see David Sedaris on screen. We didn't want to go for that, and I think had we tried, it would have, even under the best conditions, would have backfired. So instead we just went and made what we think would hopefully be a good movie that can stand on its own. And that's what appealed to David, that we weren't appealing to him, in a strange way. That it could just be something that would be a curiosity for him, that would exist out there, but be independent of his work and his identity.
Fantastic, right. Anything to add to that?
When I first got the script, I said I couldn't do this because I don't look or sound like David Sedaris. And when I sat down with Kyle at the first meeting, you pretty much said that exact thing to me, and it opened up the whole role for me as an actor, because suddenly I thought, okay, I don't have to do a David Sedaris impression. We can actually explore this character's journey outside of acting like David.
Right.
Yeah, because I think inevitably that would be, like I said, even under the best conditions, even under the best impersonation or someone who looks exactly like him, I don't know, his voice is so distinctive, and that's why he's so successful and so popular. That I don't know what the point would be. I don't know why you would want to make that into a movie. It would be wish fulfillment, but nothing else short of that, nothing cinematic. And so, for me, it wasn't the effort to be like, I have this strong desire to see David Sedaris' work on screen. Otherwise, I have a strong desire to see this particular story happen on screen.
Right.
And in the end, I think we stayed true to that, and I think that's what David's happy. It's what I'm happy with the film, and I think what David's happy with.
Excellent. Do either of you have a great story to tell about something that happened during the film that was just really bizarre and weird? I don't know. It could be showing up in the house of unexpected things on the wall.
I mean, there's definitely like a lot of anecdotes with that I wouldn't want to talk about. I wouldn't want to spoil the film too much by talking about, but that led to, but you know what? It was every day we were in a new place, and so every day there was sort of like the apple factory. That machine kept on breaking because we could only afford the apples that were like, kind of had like tumors on the side. Those are the only ones we could afford to have on camera and buy were like fuck ups, and so they kept on breaking the machines, and we had to kept on stalling. There was those kind of things, all those unexpected delays.
Right.
And it's a testament to Jonathan and Corey and Dennis that they just sort of kept on pushing through that.
And you.
Well, yeah,
you rocked it out every time.
we had some difficult days, but the truth was that we were sort of all there for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And so without spoiling the film too much, I feel like it's constantly moving. And one of the hopes I had with the movie was that you wouldn't realize how many different places it would take place in until it ended.
Right.
And you'd look back and be like, oh my God, he went through so much. But each of those places we went to had some kind of, it was either the hay barn that people were like trying to smoke cigars inside of, actors and crew, or it was the, like the apple factory and the all breaking, or Curly's house that we know what takes place there, and sort of the oddities of having that much silicone in one room. You get nauseous from it. But anyway, but I don't want
I took so many pictures of that room. I have so many photo shots.
Yeah, that was, there was a lot of anticipation.
All of the stories that are coming to my head are inappropriate to say for recorded time. Unfortunately.
Sorry.
Sorry. I want to keep them private moments.
Okay.
For our own good and for the good of others.
Well, we were shooting the last scene
and for your autobiography.
And
we were shooting the last scene of the film right when the polls were coming in the election.
Right.
So the re-election we were shooting this last scene, which is really dark. Like probably the most difficult scene to shoot for the actors, and also for timing because we were chasing the sunset, and everyone was sort of checking their cell phones in between takes, which normally you avoid, but when you're dealing with like the most important thing happening in the country, at least until the next 4 years, it's warranted.
Sure.
And so there was an interesting thing shooting this sort of like emotional and somewhat politically charged, and Dennis in that scene, Dennis has very strong political affiliations, and so. As do a lot of us, but for him in particular.
Yeah.
And I remember all those numbers were coming in, and then we went to dinner afterwards, and that was sort of the last big scene in the movie we were shooting. It was sort of the last big emotion. We had a couple more days, but it was more little things to pick up here or there. And we went to dinner afterwards, and as we ordered dinner, we were talking about the scene, and so grateful how it went so well, and how good Jonathan and Dennis were both in it. Then the news came in that Ohio got settled. It was just an interesting movie. Not where something so big and important is happening, it gives you some perspective on what you're doing.
Yeah, right,
you're trying to create entertainment. Even if you're trying to create complex or challenging entertainment, it's still there.
Right.
I'll always remember that.
So well said.
I'm glad. I hope I didn't overreach there. And the folks were like, because I'm sure, it just reminded you, and it made me appreciate that day when the last shot of the film, we were getting literally as the sun was just. We had no time for one more take. So it was a stressful day, but it helped kind of keep it in place.
Right. And lastly, I wanted to ask you, why have you decided to bring your film to Frameline in the Castro Theater?
Well, I feel like I'm being chatty. I grew up in Northern California, so for me, this is only the second LGBT festival any film I've ever made has played at. So there's that. There's the fact that we're screening at the Castro, which growing up near San Francisco, being perfectly familiar with the Castro district, the theater, what it means for the gay culture, gay cinema, so many other parallels. It would sound like I'm reaching, but I'm not. To get a chance to screen there, nevertheless, the sheer amount of people and the support, to see how many people are here to see the film, and that I feel like I'm close to home. But there's this other side of it, and I'll let Jonathan speak about that. He's going to be shooting this new show here. And it's kind of exciting for me to get to bring the movie here, and that Jonathan gets to be here when he's going to be working on something that's identity as part of the city.
Right.
You know?
And that would be what show?
It's this show, and that would be what? Segue to. It's a show for HBO that's untitled, but it's about gay people living in modern day San Francisco. Yeah, and we shot the pilot here like a month ago, or a month and a half ago, and we actually, as a cast and crew, came to the Castro Theater to see a drag show, and it was so fun, and this theater is so amazing. And we're gonna shoot the show here in September and October and November, so we'll be back then shooting. But I first came here to San Francisco a couple years ago on a road trip, and the first place I came was the Castro, and it was during the San Francisco Film Festival, and I came to see a movie here in this theater, and was like, because it's like sort of like the gay mecca. It's like so much important gay history happened here, and I came sort of on a solo trip, and this was the first place I came to. And when you step inside the theater, you can like really feel the history of this neighborhood and of this theater here. It's such a special place. I'm so excited to watch this movie here.
And Dennis was in the film, Dennis O'Hare. He was in there. He unfortunately couldn't be here today. He was in that film.
Right.
It felt, it just, I feel it's an honor. I mean, because of the scope and the history of Frameline. For me, it's a real opportunity. It's something I'm really glad that the film is getting a chance to do, and on many levels.
Well, Kyle and Jonathan, thank you so much for being here and bringing COG to Frameline 37, and we are grateful to have you.
Thank you so much.